We've heard this morning about how incredibly complex lupus is. We've heard how hard it is to recognize the disease. Is it one disease? Is it multiple diseases? How difficult it is to trial. And that all makes finding new treatments incredibly difficult. So what are we doing about that? We have this new program to try and address the slow pace of drug development. So originally we were looking at drug repositioning, and we're also looking at how to redirect drugs that are being looked at by companies for other diseases, but could they be possible for lupus? We undertook a huge study looking at all drugs out there approved and did a whole scoring and ranking system, and I'm not going to get into all the details of that, but it was a very complex process in looking at, well, what might have the potential to work for lupus. I'm going to run through just kind of quickly some of the ongoing and planned trials. So it's really the crux of the matter and what's really coming out of this network. So one of the first drugs that was looked at in terms of repositioning is ustekinumab, or Stelara, which is approved for plaque psoriasis. So we approached Janssen Pharmaceuticals, which makes this drug, and said, hey, this scored really high, you know, in our project of looking at potential drugs for lupus, and we would, you know, like to talk about doing a study in lupus. And they, you know, said, you know, this is really great, and they decided to go ahead and do the trial on their own. So wonderful, you know. So right now there's a trial out there for Stelara for lupus. So then another drug that we're looking at is called Rayos. It's a delayed released prednisone. So as you heard, I'm not a scientist, so I'm not so great at explaining the mechanisms. But you know, my understanding is you take this in the evening. It works with your circadian rhythms overnight, and you wake up less tired. So while it's not a cure, if you can wake up and not feel as fatigued, and if it normally takes you 2 hours to get moving in the morning, and it maybe only takes 1, I mean, you know, quality of life improvements, I think, you know, from what I've heard from people, it would be very important and would be a step in the right direction. So we're going to be launching this Rayos trial. It's been approved for RA, and some of you may, you know, also have rheumatoid arthritis and understand, you know, how that feels. So an important part of this trial is we're going to be looking at patient-reported outcomes. So part of this trial, we're developing an app that will be like on your phone so that you can record your data, and then that will go into the database to be studied. So how you report your fatigue and how you're feeling will also be incorporated in with, you know, what's looked at in terms of all your blood work, etc. And so there's the larger picture there. So patient-reported outcomes and getting the input of the patient is becoming more and more important, because, you know, your blood work can say one thing and you may feel another. The other great thing about this is it would be steroid sparing. And, you know, that would be, you know, wonderful. I mean, you know, I think a big goal of treatment is to reduce steroids and the long-term effects. So we're very excited about this and the promise that this has. So hopefully we'll be announcing the launch of that shortly. So then also, you know, a lot of people, you know, do yoga and mindfulness and different things and feel better. So does that really work? Is it really helpful? So we're also looking at mindfulness and the potential benefits of that. So in a partnership with the University of Virginia. So, you know, can we show an impact of what a lot of people say works? So that, I think, is also another very interesting project coming out of this network. Now, this one, the way that I've hear this kind of described, and we talk about this, is kind of like a souped up MRI. So can we look at MRIs as opposed to biopsies? So wouldn't that be great if instead of having to have a renal biopsy, you can look at an MRI and have a non-invasive procedure? So this is another very exciting trial that will be coming along, and it came out of a very collaborative project. We have an industry council of a bunch of pharmaceutical companies who sit around the table and talk in a pre-competitive space because, you know, as we've heard, everybody faces the same challenges. And if we can work together to overcome some of these challenges and help, you know, move everybody along in their research and trials, wouldn't that be great? So this is something that came out of that. So, you know, I would imagine that fewer biopsies for those of you who may have had to go through that procedure, and the ability to, you know, have an MRI would probably be a very welcome change. So that's another one that we're very excited about coming along. So as you can see, you know, there's really a range of what we're looking at, from alternative and complementary therapies to medications. So here's another one where we're simply doing looking at patient-reported outcomes in and of themselves. So how many of you, you know, go to the doctor and you have to sit there and do a fatigue scale or some other, you know, long list of questions, and every time you go in, you have to fill out this questionnaire. So how would you feel about an app on your phone, and you can go in and just record it sort of at your convenience? And if you're recording it more in real time, then we're not worrying about, you know, memory recollection. So if you're at the doctor's office and they want to know how you felt in the past 4 weeks, and you're like, I can't even remember what I had for lunch yesterday, but you know, you were able to record this in real time in an app on your phone, and then the information goes to the doctor and they can see how you were feeling. You know, so what do you guys think of, you know, that as kind of an improvement? And then, you know, another one in the area of alternative therapies, krill oil. I don't know if people in here take krill oil or omega-3s. We hear a lot about, you know, fish oils and the benefit that they have. So there's a lot of interest in whether or not this can really help for the inflammatory effects in lupus. So this is another project that we are working on, and it's a little farther behind some of them, so it'll be a little while before you hear more about this one. But I just wanted to sort of run the spectrum of the different kinds of things that we're looking at. So in the, you know, again, you heard about really the complexity of studying the disease, which it's wonderful that we have such great minds, as Dr. Concharides, really diving down into that bench science and really trying to dissect and understand the disease at the molecular level so that we can hopefully get to, you know, new medications that will help to mitigate the disease and lead to, you know, prevention and a cure someday. And we know, as Dr. Sokos talked about, a lot of the issues with clinical trials. So taking all that knowledge together, I think, is one of the great things of the Alliance and all the collaborations that we have, is to be able to then, you know, put together this network, work with all these experts, and look at all these different perspectives. So some of them, you know, may lead towards, you know, getting us towards a cure. Some of them may lead towards, you know, feeling better. So the timeline, as you all know, and we hear it all the time, how frustrating it is, why does everything take so long? And I think you got a very good sense of that today. So we hope that with some of these trials and some of these things that we're working on, we'll be able to bring some things about a little quicker